Before we dive into this thrilling story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. Your support keeps us going. Now, let's get into it. It all started with a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. Tuesday afternoons were always the same. I'd come home from work around 5:45, loosen my tie before stepping inside, and expect to be greeted by a mix of teenage chaos and the quiet hum of a home that, despite everything, I thought was mine. But that day was different. The house was still. Unnaturally so. No laughter. No yelling. No music leaking out from under their bedroom doors. It felt like walking into a museum of a life I used to belong to. I set my briefcase down at the entryway, listening for the usual signs, clattering dishes, footsteps overhead, maybe the TV humming in the background. Nothing. My wife was at the kitchen table, glued to her phone, her expression unreadable, distant. She didn't even glance up when I entered. That alone was enough to send a flicker of unease down my spine. "Where are the girls?" I asked casually, trying to keep my voice light. I was already bracing for something. I just didn't know what yet. She didn't answer. Just kept scrolling, her thumb moving mechanically, eyes blank. And then I heard it. Voices. Low, hushed. Coming from the back of the house. I walked toward the sound, confused. The living room lights were off, but through the slightly ajar door, I saw them, both girls sitting on the couch, their heads bowed together, phones in hand, talking in those clipped teenage tones that adults were never meant to hear. I shouldn't have listened. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I lingered by the hallway wall, barely breathing, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted to warn me of what was coming. I caught fragments of words, soft, venomous things that slid under the door and pierced deeper than any scream ever could. "We don't even have to call him Dad anymore," one of them said. "Yeah," the other agreed. "He's not our real father. I still don't get why Mom married him." There was a silence after that. The kind that settles after something sharp is thrown. My breath caught in my throat. My mind froze. Not our real father. Those 4 words carved a hole through everything I thought I knew. I had changed their diapers. Held their hands at every doctor's appointment. Stayed up until 2 a.m. helping them build volcanoes for school science projects they'd forgotten about. I taught them how to ride bikes. How to tie their shoes. How to tell time. I was the one who showed up when they were crying. When they were scared. When no one else did. And suddenly, I was nothing? I backed away from the door like it had burned me, walking slowly, carefully, trying not to fall apart right there in the hallway. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Something inside me was unraveling too fast for me to hold on to any of my usual instincts. I sat down in the den and stared at the muted TV screen. I don't even remember what was playing. My ears were ringing with those words. Not our real father. The rest of the evening passed like a fever dream. They didn't acknowledge me when I passed them in the hall. Didn't ask about my day. Didn't glance in my direction during dinner. It was like I had become invisible in my own home. My wife barely said a word, sipping her wine like it was water, like it was her only lifeline to whatever reality she was pretending to stay in. That night, I lay awake in bed while the rest of the house slept. The ceiling stared down at me like a judge, silent and cold. I replayed every moment from the last decade. Every scraped knee I had kissed better. Every late-night grocery run when someone forgot a project was due. Every time I told them I loved them and they mumbled it back through teenage indifference. Did none of that count? I wasn't their real father. Fine. Maybe biologically, no. But I had been the one who stayed. The one who showed up. When their biological father vanished like smoke, no letters, no calls, I had stepped in without hesitation. I loved them like they were my own because they were my own. Weren't they? The next morning, I didn't make breakfast. That was the first time in years. I just sat there with my coffee, flipping through a newspaper I wasn't reading. The girls came downstairs eventually, still glued to their phones, laughing about something I wasn't invited to understand. And I asked them? I don't know why. Maybe I wanted them to deny it. Maybe I thought it was some cruel misunderstanding, a moment of anger taken out of context. I said it quietly, not accusatory, not angry, just tired. "Do you think I'm not your father?" One of them didn't even look up. Just muttered. "You're not. You never really were." It was like being stabbed in the stomach, slow and deliberate. I stood there, numb, staring at these 2 people I had poured my life into. They didn't look angry. Or confused. Or even remorseful. They were just indifferent. "Well," I said, my voice tight. "If that's how you feel, then I guess I'll stop pretending." I walked out of the kitchen. No one followed. No one called out. I could have been a ghost, or a stranger, or worse, an inconvenience. The words lingered in the house like smoke from a fire that no one tried to put out. That day, something inside me shut off. Not with violence. Not with rage. But with silence. I stopped being their father. Not because I didn't love them. But because, maybe, I was done being hurt. I didn't clean up their dishes. Didn't check if they'd done their homework. Didn't ask about school, or friends, or life. I stopped being the background character in their lives that held everything together without being noticed. I was done. And they didn't realize the shift right away. Not at first. They had grown so used to my presence, my service, that they didn't notice the absence until it started to leave gaps. Missed rides. Forgotten lunches. Silence where comfort used to be. On the fourth day, one of them blinked at me from the staircase and asked, "Aren't you making breakfast?" I shrugged. "You don't need me to. I'm not your real dad, remember?" Her expression faltered, just a flicker, but she didn't say anything. She didn't ask again the next morning. And that's when I realized, they had no idea what they'd set in motion. They thought I'd keep playing the role no matter what. But this time, I wasn't going to be the one fixing it. Silence has a weight to it. It's not just the absence of sound, it's something more. A presence that fills the room when words should have, a dense, invisible pressure that settles on your chest and makes every breath feel slightly harder than the last. That's what the house became in the days after I stopped being their father. A quiet battlefield. No yelling. No tears. Just space. Too much of it. The girls didn't question me again, not directly. They tiptoed around my absence like it was a new piece of furniture they hadn't decided whether to keep or move. They still went about their routines, brushing their hair in front of the hallway mirror, tossing their backpacks by the door, scrolling endlessly on their phones. But something was off. Every interaction had a hesitation built into it. They didn't ask me for rides anymore. They didn't bring up the science fair or ask for help with math homework. They just stopped, needing me. Or maybe they thought they had to. My wife noticed. She wasn't as obvious at first, still sipping her wine in the evenings, still distracted, but I could feel the glances she gave me when she thought I wasn't looking. The subtle shifts in her tone when she spoke to the girls. A strain had cracked through the surface, and she didn't know how to patch it without drawing attention to the damage. By the end of the week, the rhythm of the house had completely changed. Where there used to be a natural flow, questions, answers, reminders, jokes, there was now a series of disconnected movements. Like actors missing their cues in a play that had gone on too long. One morning, the youngest came downstairs rubbing her eyes, still groggy. She looked at me sitting at the table, coffee in hand, unread newspaper in front of me. "Aren't you gonna make breakfast?" she asked, her voice unsure, as if the question itself was somehow risky. I didn't even look up. "I don't know. Do you really need me to?" She blinked at me, clearly confused by the question. It wasn't anger or defiance. Just confusion. A child suddenly unsure of the rules in a game she thought she knew. She didn't ask again after that. Later that night, my wife finally broke the pattern. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The TV was on, but neither of us was really watching. She turned to me slowly, her voice low, almost cautious. "Why are you being like this?" she asked. I didn't flinch. "Like what?" "You know what I mean. You're just not there. You're not taking care of them." I kept my eyes on the screen. "I'm not their father anymore. They said it themselves. So I'm not pretending I am." Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression tightening, then turned back toward the TV. No defense. No protest. Just the growing awareness that this wasn't just about me and the girls. It was about all of us. The days blurred into one another after that. I went to work, came home, sat in silence, and watched as the roles we'd all been playing disintegrated. The girls started fighting more. Small things, stupid things. Who left dishes in the sink? Who forgot to feed the dog? Who used the last of the shampoo? But beneath it, I could hear the tension building, the unspoken realization that something bigger had broken. Something they couldn't fix by pretending everything was fine. I caught the older one staring at me a few times. Quick glances. Always when she thought I wasn't paying attention. There was something in her eyes, not guilt exactly, but uncertainty. Like she was starting to question the truth of the words she'd said. But neither of them had tried to talk to me again. Maybe they were scared of what I'd say. Or maybe they thought I didn't care anymore. One night, I came home late from work. I'd taken the long way home just to avoid the heavy quiet that waited for me. When I walked in, I saw the two of them on the couch again, whispering. But this time, they weren't laughing. Their heads were close, faces tight, tense. I didn't make a sound as I passed by. Didn't even glance in their direction. And still, I felt their eyes follow me. Later, I heard them talking upstairs. The door was shut, but voices leaked through, barely audible. I paused at the bottom of the staircase, not eavesdropping so much as just existing within range. "Why is he like that now?" one asked. "Because we said it," the other replied. "We said he's not our dad." Silence. Then, quieter. "I didn't think he'd stop caring." Neither did I. But I had. Or at least, I'd stopped showing it. That night, my wife didn't sleep next to me. She stayed on the couch, curled up with a blanket, eyes red. I don't know if she'd been crying. I didn't ask. We were all drifting in our own directions. No one was steering the ship anymore. The next morning, the older one hesitated before leaving for school. She stood in the doorway, her backpack slung over one shoulder, chewing at the corner of her lip like she wanted to say something. I waited. She didn't. She left without a word. And still, I stayed silent. I told myself it was about principle. About respect. About not rewarding their cruelty with attention. But deep down, I knew it was also about fear. I was afraid of forgiving them too quickly. Afraid that doing so would make me feel even smaller than I already did. They had to feel this. All of it. The emptiness. The discomfort. The space where I used to be. Only then, maybe, they'd realize what they'd pushed away. Only then, maybe, I'd believe they really meant it if they came back. The house had grown used to silence, but that Saturday afternoon, it felt heavier than usual. A kind of quiet that didn't just happen, but settled like dust over every surface. It was the kind of quiet that meant someone was trying too hard to avoid a conversation. My wife had taken her laptop out onto the patio under the guise of answering work emails, though I hadn't heard her type a single key. The girls were upstairs, doors closed, music barely audible beneath their bedroom floors, like they were hoping sound could act as a barrier between us. And me, I was in the kitchen, sorting through clutter in the junk drawer not because I needed anything, but because I needed to feel busy. I'd been avoiding mirrors lately, not wanting to look myself in the eye, not wanting to face the man I was turning into. That's when I saw it, the phone. Sitting alone on the dining table, screen still lit, abandoned in a way that seemed careless even for a teenager. It was Claire's, my oldest. She never went anywhere without that thing. Even during dinner, when we were still pretending to be a functioning family, she kept it face up on the table like an extension of her own hand. But here it was, left behind, glowing faintly in the sunlight filtering through the blinds. I wasn't planning to touch it. I wasn't even planning to look. But something caught my eye before I could turn away, a notification. A message from an unknown number. And in that tiny preview, a sentence that instantly made my breath stop. Unknown number. "He's not your dad." "I am." "Asked your mom." I stood there frozen. Not angry. Not confused. Just stunned. I had imagined 100 reasons why the girls had grown cold. Teenage rebellion. Hormones. Resentment over rules, curfews, and consequences. I had thought maybe I'd made mistakes, pushed too hard or hadn't shown up enough. I had replayed every memory, every interaction, every decision trying to pinpoint the moment things changed. But I had never considered this. I backed away from the table, leaving the phone untouched. A part of me wanted to read everything, scroll through the messages, find out how long this had been going on, see what else had been said. But I couldn't. It wasn't just about principle or privacy. It was about fear. I was afraid of what else I might find. Afraid that what I suspected, that someone had been manipulating them, poisoning them against me, would be confirmed in full detail. I walked out onto the patio. My wife looked up as I opened the sliding door, her face immediately guarded. She closed her laptop, even though I hadn't looked at the screen. Maybe she saw something in my eyes. Maybe she knew what was coming. "I saw a message," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't crack. It was too numb for that. She blinked, the blood draining from her face. "From who?" "Unknown number. Said he's their father. Told them to ask you." Her reaction was immediate, a sharp intake of breath, a hand reaching for the edge of the table like she needed to steady herself. She didn't even try to deny it. Just looked away, her mouth tightening before she finally spoke. "I didn't want you to find out like that. So you were going to let me find out some other way?" I asked, my tone still flat, but the edges sharper now. "He contacted me a few months ago," she said quickly. "I didn't respond. I ignored him. I thought it would go away. But it didn't," I said. "And now he's talking to them." She nodded slowly. "I didn't give him their numbers. I swear. But I guess social media. Maybe he saw a picture. Maybe someone tagged them. I don't know how he found them." I sat down, not because I was tired but because my legs couldn't be trusted to hold me up anymore. I stared out at the yard, the same one where I taught them to ride their bikes, where we used to set up sprinklers in the summer. I could almost hear their laughter echoing off the fence, but it felt like it came from another life. So he's been messaging them, I said. While I've been in this house, being shut out, blamed, pushed aside. He's been whispering in their ears. I didn't know he'd actually contact them, she said again. I thought, maybe he just needed closure. I looked at her then, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't see my wife. I saw someone who had made a decision without me, who had gambled with the foundation of our family, and hoped no one would notice. You thought wrong, I said. And now we're all paying for it. I didn't wait for her to respond. I stood up and went inside, walking past the dining table like the phone wasn't still burning a hole in it. I didn't confront Claire. I didn't say a word to either of them. Instead, I went to the den and pulled out an old photo album from the cabinet under the TV. It was dusty, heavier than I remembered, the pages slightly warped from age and fingerprints. I opened it and began flipping through, slowly at first, then faster, like I needed to find something specific but didn't know what. Birthday parties. School plays. Christmas mornings. Beach trips. Snow days. Halloween costumes. Each photo was another moment, another piece of a puzzle I had been building for years, only to find out someone else was trying to take credit for it. There was one picture that stopped me cold. It was from Claire's 7th birthday. She was standing on a chair, arms outstretched, wearing a paper crown and laughing so hard her eyes were closed. I was behind her, holding the cake, smiling with the kind of joy you don't fake. The cake was lopsided, my handiwork, but she hadn't cared. That night, she'd hugged me and said it was the best birthday ever. Had she forgotten that? Had he somehow erased that memory with a few texts and a blood tie? I closed the album and leaned back, the weight of everything pressing against my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to confront him, whoever he was, wherever he was. I wanted to show him those photos, shove them in his face and ask, "Where were you? Where were you when they were sick, scared, broken, lost? Where were you when they needed someone to teach them right from wrong? Where were you when they needed a dad?" But more than that, I wanted to ask the girls. I wanted to look them in the eye and ask, "Does he know your favorite snacks? Does he know which one of you gets nightmares when it storms? Does he know you can't sleep unless the hallway light's on? Does he know your laugh? Your voice? Your soul?" Of course he didn't. He couldn't. Because he hadn't been here. I had. That night, dinner was a quiet affair again. My wife cooked, though none of us had much of an appetite. The girls ate quickly, barely speaking, avoiding my eyes. I could feel it, something different in the air. The tension was still there, but now it was laced with something else. Unease. Guilt. Maybe fear. Afterward, Claire lingered in the kitchen.